Happy New Year. I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer for the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the latest episode of Take 20, created by the PDMI Brand Response Council. As they have been since mid-2020, these 20-ish minute live conversations featuring leaders in the performance marketing world speaking about the hottest topics in the industry are scheduled twice a month all year long. Before we get to today's conversation, a housekeeping note, many you've all likely have heard before. We'll be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but you don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the episode. As we open our 2024 schedule, we're all operating in a world where performance marketing mechanisms have evolved, and so have the ways consumers can respond to marketers' ads. The call to action, once simple and direct, can now be complicated and daunting for consumers to understand and for marketers to track. How are today's consumers responding most actively, and how has this changed in recent years? And how are performance marketers dealing with these changes and reacting effectively? Today, Take 20 host and Brand Response Council Chair Chris Foster of Modern Postcard welcomes this quartet of experts. Script Screen's Ken Kerry, Buyist Greg Silvano, Flowcode's David Schwarzberg, and off-screen but online is Ringba's Jenny Parrish to discuss these questions and more. Welcome, everyone. Chris, take it away.
Thanks so much, Thomas, and welcome in everybody, and welcome in all of our guests to 2024. It's going to be a fantastic year, and we're getting this started with episode 81 of the Take 20. So really glad you all are here and excited to jump in. You know, to Thomas's point, with the number of channels available for consumers to receive marketing, and the varieties of ways to respond, the options of call to action and the challenge of attribution has never been more complicated. It's website visits, it's form fills, it's vanity UR numbers, 800 numbers, it's QR codes, it's storefront foot traffic. Remember that? It's email clicks. These are all ways consumers can engage with the marketing. But you add to that the question of timing and life cycle and device habits, and suddenly you've got a jigsaw puzzle, right? And it's ways to get customers to act. And it's up to the brand marketer to fit the pieces of this jigsaw puzzle and make a coherent picture for the business and tell the story of how consumers are responding to the marketing. It also begs the question of what are consumers actually doing? So we're going to jump in. We've got fantastic panelists. Thank you all for being here. And Jenny, although you are the voice from across the ether, I want to start with you first. And I'm sorry that we can't see your face, but we're excited to hear what you've got to say. What are you seeing on the traditional, because the traditional CTA has always been phone numbers, right? Your EVP at Ringba. How's the general level of phone activity and behavior changed over the last several years?
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. And I do apologize, some technical difficulties. You know, we're going to work right through it, but I certainly want to address this great topic. So, you know, despite the belief that no one wants to be on the phone these days, at Ringba, we have seen a huge increase in caller activity. You know, when you think about the reasons someone may pick up, excuse me, may pick up the phone, like for an urgent need, a dentist, a plumber, large purchases like solar panels, your mortgage, your insurance policy, it remains true that the consumers have questions and they want answers before making these purchasing decisions. You know, to give you an idea of the growth behind calls in the past several years, you know, there is typically a time of year called AEP that is open enrollment for Medicare, one of our largest times where we see a huge influx in volume. And to give you an idea, we were seeing thousands of requests per minute last AEP. And this year, or I should say 2023, we were seeing thousands of requests per second. The growth in regards to how consumers are being addressed from a marketing perspective has seen a huge increase for really consumer initiated inbound calls. And so only, you know, with everybody having a device in their pocket and wanting to have their questions answered and really seeing it as the highest form of intent when it comes to interacting with consumer, we have only seen growth over the past several years and continue to see that trajectory even early on in this year of 2024.
That's excellent. I want to get back to that because I do have a question about that. I wonder if sometimes throughout all of the various options of CTAs a direct phone call with another human being sometimes might be the simplest way for a consumer to engage with a brand.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because they don't need to wait for that call back. They don't need to go to the website to try to find the answers. They pick up the phone, they're speaking to a qualified agent, they're the professionals, they understand their product inside and out, and they can get those questions answered. And that's really what makes inbound calls perform so well for so many different industries. It's a very powerful way to connect to consumers.
No, I get it. And what's interesting is that the consumers, of course, when they're seeing marketing, one of the first things they're going to do is go to a website, right? Because they want to figure out what the business is, perhaps even before calling. And they go to websites, but they also go to landing pages. So, Greg, when it comes to the landing pages and websites, we know that designing for mobile first is key for brands. It's been a big movement, especially rewarded by Google. But is it also a preeminent approach for direct response programs?
It's at the point now where it's almost mobile only, let alone mobile first, right? So it used to be, you had websites that were mobile friendly, they would just function on a mobile device. Then it would be mobile optimized where, it's, it formats well on a mobile device. And then it was mobile first, which is, hey, most of our traffic is on a mobile device. So let's start to look at it on mobile as we design it first. And, if you think about the traffic of a direct response campaign, back in the day, it was TV, right? So TV still is for major campaigns, but it was TV. And if you're sitting in front of your TV, what are you going to do if you're interested? You're going to reach for your phone, right? Or the iPad back in the day, but probably more phone now. And that became very mobile friendly for classic direct response TV driven campaigns, right? That's where mobile, no matter what, it was 80% traffic plus was on a mobile device. What's happened since TV? Well, you introduced digital marketing. Well, what's digital marketing? Well, it's Meta, right? It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Snapchat, it's TikTok, which are all mobile apps, right? So we see campaigns that are predominantly predominantly social media driven, and they're like 95% mobile traffic. We've had a campaign with a 20-something celebrity that had nothing but 20-something followers, and it was literally 100% mobile traffic for a year. So I don't think the only desktop traffic we ever saw was us designing the site.
Testing.
So it's super important, and I actually convey that to people when we talk to them. Everybody, when they review a landing page, they look at it on their computer at the office or their laptop. I'm like, you're the only person who's seeing it like this. So switch it over to mobile and take another look, because it drastically changes the order in which you say things, and the story of the site. When it's much more scrollable versus left to right, lots of images, you have to get to the point a lot quicker. So it's a good development.
That's wonderful. I love that. I want to get back to you later about that tactic and where you place those calls to action on those mobile landing pages. But before we do that, we oftentimes know that to get to that landing page, especially from an ad, either from a television ad especially, or CTV program, or even on a billboard, it's a QR code, right? You've got your phone, you zap it, you go right to that landing page. So David, we know that the landing page driver is that code. I guess the question for you is, because you're on the back end seeing this stuff, when a code and a phone number share that same physical space, what have you seen the behavior from the customers lean towards?
Yeah, well, I think it's shifted over time, and it really depends on in what medium we're referring to, whether it's on TV or whether it's IRL in those various calls to actions. But just in terms of trends, when you go back a few years ago, still, right after COVID, I think there was the utility of codes became very obvious and transparent in the offline world. And I think that people often forgot that 80% of the economy is still offline. And a lot of the mechanisms, whether it was print, out of home, TV, had been traditionally one-way mediums, and 1-800 numbers or providing a URL was the mechanism for trying to capture that. And I think that people started experimenting with codes. Once a code was deployed in the Super Bowl and scanned by tens of millions of humans with no education, no call to action, I think that kind of lit the fire under the asses of the industry to say, this as a mechanism is fast and frictionless and brings them right to the desired destination. Right. And I think that Whereas when we started to do experimentation of 1-800 versus URL versus QR, we used to see anywhere from, call it 5 to 10% of the overall engagement could be attributed specifically to the code. And over the last 18 to 24 months, we've seen it 3x on average for a number of the different campaigns we've seen. And I think that's changed in depending on the audience where the media is run. But I think there's a wider understanding and expectation of how to do it and how to do it well. Mm-hmm. And I think that companies and the agencies, a lot of people on this call have done a good job realizing that as long as there's incrementality, they're open to all the different channels to eventually find all the potential leads or outcomes that are best for their partners.
No, that's right. And I think that that's the idea, because if you have multiple ways in which customers can act, you leave it to the customer to figure out how they want to do it. And I guess, Ken, I would then move to you. As an agency, you're queuing up all these CTAs, right? You're advising clients on the sequence. We talked in a previous Take 20 about how you use various channels and the job of each channel in kind of a sequential way. Now, what are you recommending from a call to action standpoint? Now that you're kind of in the back end, can look at a dashboard of phone and landing pages and QR code scans. When you talk to clients and you talk about CTAs, what's that conversation like?
Well, first of all, first and foremost, it's always who is the customer? Who is the person that you want to react to what you're doing? Because that starts everywhere. Is it younger? Is it middle age? Is it older? That makes a difference. What's the category? Are they digital native businesses? Are they trying to drive retail? So there's so many. We can have a whole Take 50 on that, on the potential markets. But the reality is this: we don't even look at. And David said something very funny, and I took it this way, but it's not what he said. But we go back in the day, or Greg said back in the day. You know, I look at COVID as back in the day. COVID's back in the day because things have changed so dramatically, right? So we look at it this way. It's like, I don't even call it a CTA anymore. I call it a CTLA, and that is a call to action, call to length of action. What is it that person is going to react to, and how are you going to get to them? So for example, is somebody going to pick up the phone and ask for information, which we have lots of clients that do that? If somebody has no interest in that, they're going to scan something and they want their information that way. Is somebody going to go to the website, and it's our job to capture their email to get them in a funnel of landing pages to find out what their behavior is and what is it they're looking for? Are they looking for price? They're looking for education. What is their pain point they're looking for, and how are we going to get them down that funnel? Because sometimes it's an immediate reaction, sometimes it's more education, sometimes it's offer, sometimes it's more specific to their pain point. So I don't know if exactly I'm answering your question, Chris. I think I am, but it's really dependent on the market, where that consumer is, what they're looking for, and then it's our job as an agency to say, okay, you're a digital native business. You want to scale your business on television, but you have to understand that your customers are coming from a different place. So we're going to serve it to them that way. We're going to put it on television, and we're going to learn from what you've done before, and then we're going to fill that funnel even more because you've aced that business. So let's just get more people over there, and that may be a pop-up. That may be a landing page, that may be a QR code, and is the QR code going to be able to retrack them through SMS text, which we really like that idea, and it works really well. So it is the length of what that call to action is based on the category and the consumer, and then you can build out from there. It's not just click this button and add to cart anymore. I wish it were that easy, but it's never that easy. And Ken, I think that's a really insightful change of the nomenclature, the call to length of action, because that builds in where the customer is in their specific journey. I love that. That's a wonderful concept. Thank you for introducing that to the audience. And I think that you had mentioned back in the day, right? Back in the day, even, well, actually back in the day, just
this past enrollment period, Jenny, you had mentioned that it was not just thousands per minute, but thousands per second. So clearly the phone is still this powerful draw. And we talked about it earlier, sometimes it's the simplest. I guess the question is, beyond being the simplest, conventional wisdom states that the phone calls get a higher conversion rate than other inbound channels like websites and landing pages, et cetera. Is that still the case? Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, absolutely. It is exactly what we're seeing because there's no barriers or additional steps that the consumer is having to take. They're either not having to further take another action in order to get that purchasing opportunity. And so I think that when you think about the highest intent, outside of, potentially in the digital realm search, really an inbound customer initiated phone call is gold for so many advertisers and brands. And I think it's really important for our audience to know too that there has been recent adjustments from the FCC, the one-to-one consent law. This is something that is very impactful for lead generation and consumer interaction overall, where someone that has a business model like, let's say, a lending tree, where the consumer typically would come in from a single funnel, they would sign in and put in their information, and they would at times get multiple phone calls. The FCC has put a stop to that. And so with this new law coming into play, we see an extraordinary shift, not only from marketers, but brands, carriers, all these different businesses that are making a very conscious effort to move towards that customer initiated inbound, because there is no gray area in regards to the intent that a consumer has when they pick up the phone and dial and want to speak to you about your product or services. And so not only do we see a higher conversion rate, I've been in the lead generation space and performance marketing for 20 plus years. I've seen those that have done a tremendous amount in clicks and leads now gravitate towards inbound calls. And so there is a revolution and a huge explosion in the pay-per-call models and inbound calls because they see a higher conversion rate. So when we think about performance marketing, we see marketers getting a much higher bounty when it comes to inbound calls in comparison to those for data leads and other formats because of that conversion rate. So the brands, the advertisers, they're able to really pay that higher bounty for that inbound call because the intent is there and the consumer is really ready to take that final step. And so I think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of growth this year and next as that law comes into play and as there is more conscious effort towards having that consumer initiated inbound as the gold standard for a consumer action.
That's fantastic.
I was literally on a conference call yesterday with one of our clients, and the average order value and the conversion rate on an educated telephone call was 2x what they were doing from an online perspective. So Jenny, I will validate that because the numbers are staggering, but it's literally 2x, and AOV is beyond 2x outside of conversion.
I'm the web guy, and I'm going to confirm it too. So,
yeah.
All right.
I love it. And what I also love too is that brands can afford a higher cost per lead when they get that phone call in. And Greg, as a web guy, I know you're going to confirm that the phone call is always going to have a higher conversion rate than the landing page. Landing pages are going to get more traffic. We know that. So I guess the question for you is, what is one call to action on the landing page that's a must-have, and what's one that might be overrated?
All right. I'll give the secret. This is literally the secret. We've done
We're recording, right?
We've done 1.5 billion in direct response e-commerce sales in the past 10 years, and this is the rule. You need a damn call to action. Don't skip one. I can't tell you how many people start off and they
can work for it.
Right, they build a site and it's almost like they think it's cheap to ask and say order now, buy now, things like that. It's not. You need the sale. Get the damn sale. Ask for the sale. I did look at metrics.
One business.
Right. It's like, and it has to be the same one. Order now, order now, order now, order now. Have it 4 or 5 times on the page, but order today, buy now. So I looked at our top performing sites from last week. They all have either order now or buy now. Those are the two that are, and we're talking sites that are like 20% conversion rate, a lot of money, right? So these are not, 10 people visited, 2 people ordered, right? This is statistically meaningful, 20%. Order now. Historically, one of the largest campaigns that has ever been on Buyist. It is a recognized name, still running. They have a few offers on the landing page, and for each one, you're looking at all 3 of them. You can see all 3 of them at the same time. They all say order now, order now, order now. Not like choose deluxe, choose standard, choose. No, order now, order now, order now. They say the exact same thing. It's just the highest converting campaign we've ever seen. So pick
Order now.
Yeah, just order now, order today, just do it. It's, people, what they do, and I'm going too long here, but what they do is they start to dip their toe into the classier world of brand advertising. Let's show some beautiful backgrounds and some close-ups of the thing, and maybe there's a learn more. No, order now. You need order now.
I guess a question that I would ask for you, does the color of the button matter?
Not at all. And not only that, the font doesn't matter. Nobody cares. What is the font on Amazon? Nobody cares, right? They care about the offer. The offer is 99% of it. I'll tell you right now. It is the offer. What are you offering them?
Awesome. That is, everybody listening, write that down and take it to the bank.
Just do it.
Just do it. Thank you so much for sharing that. So David, right, oftentimes on a scan, it would be scan to order now, scan to learn more. What have you found to be kind of this highest converting next step when somebody scans?
Look, we spend all of our time every day looking at exactly that, which is what are the different things that drive and change behavior? And there's a few nuggets I think that stand out that are like universal, just like axiomatic truths. And I think one is best practices drive a disproportionate amount of results. And I think that ties to what Greg was just sharing, which is just from a pure practicality standpoint, if the average TV size is 42 to 45 inches in the US, and the average sofa is anywhere from 7.5 to 10 feet away, you need a specific dimension of a code to be able to scan it without zooming in or getting closer. It doesn't matter how good your call to action is. You can't feasibly do that transaction if you don't implement best practices. If you don't have a call to action, if you don't have the right color contrast, all these nuances, they're not 15% or 10% incremental. They're the deltas between 7 to 10x or sometimes greater. And it's the difference of it being an ROI positive or an ROI negative execution. 2 is, I think people have become so accustomed to optimized digital experiences, and they expect when they see a product and they click on it, they're going to go to that one. Their size is saved, their name is saved, their shipping address is saved. That's starting to make its way into the offline world as well, which is I have my credit card saved on my device. I could be doing a direct mailer. I could be doing a billboard. I'm expecting that level of experience. It's no different because I now have an on-ramp that has some digital breadcrumbs. Another one is the cost per lead. I think that because there's more accountability and there's just more data horizontally, I think that there's an expectation from every marketer that they need to be able to answer how is each channel performing independently. And they know they get their halo effects, and they know that each one kind of provides a tailwind or headwind to others. But at the same time, everyone has to be able to answer to their CEO or CRO and just say, hey, this is the channel. Here's what I put in $1. I better get more than $1 out. And I think that the ability to answer that acutely and accurately in real time is becoming table stakes and has been for the past few years. And the last one that I'd leave you with is I think the hidden tax of not having the CTAs and not driving direct transactions, which is I think people understand, okay, there's incrementality and I should do it. There's the top line growth. I think a lot of people don't realize that when you don't have that direct CTA and you don't get that transaction, that person is going to want your product potentially, and they're going to go to Google or they're going to go to Amazon. You now have to rebuy that media to be in front of that audience. that data is now being resold to your competitor for retargeting in similar lookalike audiences. And so you quantify the growth. People don't necessarily know how to quantify the double dip and the tax that they're getting hit with. And I think ultimately, you may not know it, but you certainly feel it when you look at the numbers quarter after quarter and you see the trend and you're just like, it's getting harder and harder. And that feeds into it being more and more competitive.
I love that idea, David. I've never heard that before. The idea of a media tax, kind of by not converting in the moment that you can, in the opportunity, right? And not taking advantage of the opportunity of being in front of that consumer. They fool around and they go away. Yes, you have to retarget, and yes, that's additional media. Brilliant. This is an off the hook discussion, you guys. And Ken, we're gonna leave it with you.
Okay.
Since you gave us one of that first new nomenclatures of 2024, the CTLA. Can you give us some scenarios, some real world stuff? And I know it's going to be different for every business and situation, but if you say, clearly if there's a Facebook ad and there's not going to be a QR code, there's going to be a click button, it's going to go somewhere. Dave was talking about, you're 7 to 10 feet away from the TV, big old honking QR code so you can scan it easily. When you talk to your clients and they're talking about channels, and even goes back to what David just mentioned about, yes, there's halo and shuffle between responses, but each channel has to have their own individual job and perform individually. Again, what is that conversation like with your client?
Well, first of all, I want to give a kudos to David about the size of the QR code.
I do too.
Huge.
Good. That was really good.
People fall in love with their brand and like, I just want it over here. I want to put it QR, and I'm sure he said, don't waste your time. I always say, don't waste your time. If you're not going to commit to it, don't waste your time. But thank you for that one. So, it is, what is a CTA? Is it a shop button on Instagram? Is it a button on your WooCommerce or your Shopify site or whatever it is that that Greg and those guys you masterminds are working people through? It's first and foremost, we could talk CTA till the cows come home. And am I going to talk a little bit about what we do? Yes, because it has everything to do with everything else. Is because if you can't get a consumer to want your product, I don't care if it's in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 28, 30, 5 seconds, CTA doesn't mean a hill of beans, right? First and foremost, we always say that. And then, it is determine your CTA is contextual to the platform. If it's going to be add to cart, if it's going to be a shop button, it's going to be buy now when you get to the site, which I totally agree, Greg. Let's just quit being cute, just buy now.
Yep.
That I guess the overall statement would be your call to action must be contextual to the platform where you're at, and then based on the behavior of what that consumer is doing and where they come in, that's where you have to really start determining how you're going to take that path and when's the ask going to be and how much information do they have when they get to the ask. Some people just know exactly what they want to do. They pick up the phone and they call and they say, Jenny, I want to buy this. Or they go click this and then, Greg, I want to buy this. Or they scan this and they want to go, David, I want to buy this. So we always just say, be contextual to your platform, understand the behavior of your customer. They're going to tell you what they want to do, what they don't want to do, what they don't have enough of. And it's up to us as marketers and back-end infrastructure people to make sure we give the mechanisms to do that. Because if we don't react to what they're looking for and trying to figure out what they're looking for, then the call to action is a waste of time. We're trying to talk somebody into something versus give them so much value that you guilt them into buying.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting too, because the call to action is, you know, it's not the call to action that is going to convince that person to buy, right? It's the order now button that Greg was talking about. Is the mechanism for them to actually take advantage of what they want to do at the moment, right? And the same is true with a QR code, right? I'm only going to scan it if I want to, or I'm only going to call if I'm ready to call, you know. And I think that sometimes I talk with marketers and they're a little bit afraid. Oh, you can't do that. You can't ask them. They're not ready. It's like, well, you don't know if they're not ready. Only the customer knows if they're not ready, right? That's why you put that number down, because if they're ready, they're going to pick up the phone and call. We could talk about this for hours, but this has turned into a Take 35, which is awesome because I love it. But Thomas, I want to get some questions from the audience, because with this, you know, fantastic panel of experts, I don't want the audience to leave empty-handed without getting in touch with them. So what kind of questions have we got?
Great conversation, guys. Take 20-ish indeed, but great sticking power. The audience is hanging around, which is great to see. Two questions for you guys. First one is kind of a statement that I'm going to turn into a question. We initially sent users of the QR code to our main landing page, but then changed to sending them directly to the SAS page to place their order immediately without shopping. Once we did that, our conversions improved. The question, I guess, is where do you send them with the QR, David? What's more effective? Do you send them straight to where they're going to buy?
I think the best answer I could give to that is you don't need to know, you could test. And I could say it's this page or that page, and I'd say of the folks we work with, and whether it's the professional sports leagues or big direct brands and CPG companies, I think our ethos is we'll let the data speak for itself. And I can have all the opinions I want, and they're kind of worthless. So let me show you with the data. Let's look at it together, and then we'll make the best decision for your brand or your company. And I think that it's kind of the just test, don't guess.
Makes sense.
Test, don't guess.
All right, and then the other question. Obviously, we're talking about 3 or 4 different ways and more for a consumer to reach out to respond. In your guys' opinion, and everyone on the thing, is 2 CTA options the max for an ad, or are we heading toward a time where there's a single CTA option on screen based on the targeting capabilities that we have?
I'll jump in on this one. Is that whether it is an Instagram ad, Meta, TikTok, digital ad, VSL, television ad, I don't even let them think about it. I give them the opportunity right away. They're going to do it anyways, so just make it easy for them. It's so easy to see a brand and go, I'll just Google them. Oh, why do that when they can scan something? Why do that when they can pick up the phone? Why do that when they can just go to the URL and direct them to where you want to go? So I give them every ample opportunity all the time. They're going to do it anyway.
Anyone else?
Same thing. I'll throw that in with Amazon. They're going to go to Amazon there too as a search engine. So
yeah, I concur with that. I think, you know, it goes back to Ken's earlier thing where it needs to feel native to whatever environment that they're in at that moment, right? I mean, you don't want to give somebody 30 different options and it's cluttering up the screen, right? That's overkill. You know, you want to be able to get them to your digital presence or your phone, right? What else you got? So, you know, if you do it through a QR code, you know that they scanned it. It's great, right? It kind of solves that whole attribution problem, as opposed to, oh, I don't know, we had 50 people in Boston visit this website during this commercial, so it must have been from that commercial that aired on Channel 5, right? No, they scan a QR code. You know for sure they did it. So throw a QR code in there, throw on the phone number. If you want to put the URL on there as well, just to kind of reinforce the name of the product, right? The branding of it. Keep them out of Google, right? If they don't want to scan, at least you keep them out of the swamp of Google. You know, just the key ones. And as David said, man, just test. You don't know. There's no right answer for everybody every time. There are best practices. There's lots of success that people can learn from. But the nuances of every campaign they are different.
Well, what I also thought was interesting, Greg, to part in answer to that question is, You can have 2 or 3 CTAs on a landing page, but they're the same darn CTA.
Yeah.
The order now button repeated throughout, right?
Yep,
And
always.
that's equally, that's valid. Instead of one is order now, the other is, oh, learn more and try to hedge your bets a little bit. So that creates that environment of multiple points within the landing page for the customer to act.
Yep, exactly right.
Awesome.
You know, as an agency, yeah, we have our own brands, we do our own thing, but as an agency working with, you know, startups to Fortune 500 brands, the beauty of this conversation and experts like David and Greg and Jenny is that those are all extremely important to the ecosystem of everything that we do. So I just want to commend Chris and everybody at PMI that it's, you know, it's all these working together is what it takes to be successful in direct and performance marketing, direct to consumer. Not one or the other stands by themselves without the others helping each other.
Absolutely. Well, and Ken, that's you know, it's so funny about this panel because we were talking about it, and that every direct to consumer product is using Jenny and Ken and Greg and David for their campaign. Ken's going to develop and orchestrate it. There's going to be a phone number with a call center. It says, yeah, the QR code goes to the landing page that Greg built. It's perfect.
Yeah, and all the expertise that they all have in their teams is only going to be beneficial to every single person that utilizes it and listens to the advice.
That's right. That's right. Well, Ken, that's why we do the Take 20. So welcome in. What a home run grand slam start.
Yes.
Well, actually, well, it's contextual, right? So it's a touchdown.
Yeah. There you go. Hey guys, we're gonna Jenny, we're gonna cut this one. We've doubled our time. We're to take 40 just about here. So Jenny, David, Ken, Greg, and Chris, thank you all for a great conversation, an intriguing conversation, and one that really drew the interest of our crowd. Our next Take 20 episode is set for Wednesday, January 24th, when a group of call center, call technology, and customer service experts get together to discuss the latest in handling consumer telephone orders and outreach. So we're going to get right into that chunk of this in the next episode. Please visit thepdmi.com/take-20 to register for the webinar and check out the upcoming schedule. Online registration continues also for PDMI East. We're now less than 3 months away, April 8th through 10th, 2024 at Eden Rock, Miami Beach, with a wide array of educational and networking events planned. PDMI East promises to be the spring's best event. Badges are just $3.95 for PDMI members, $5.95 for non-members. Plus, by registering today, you'll jump to the head of the line to book your room at the host hotel. Visit thepdmi.com/PDMI-East to get your badge today. Thank you again for checking out this, the first episode of 2024 for the PDMI's Take 20. Be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.